Rival leaders have agreed to hold elections on the 10th of December. The landmark deal was made at a summit in Paris, convened by French President Emmanuel Macron. The various parties have also set out a political roadmap that could end 7 years of conflict in the North African country. But there are plenty of challenges ahead, as Elena Casas reports.
It was an achievement to even get Libya's rival leaders into the same room. Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj, head of the UN-backed Libyan unity government, is a bitter rival of militia leader Khalifa Haftar, whose Libyan National Army dominates the country's east. They were joined by Aguila Saleh Issa, Parliament Speaker for the Tobruk Parliament, elected in 2014, and Khalid al-Mishri of the Council of State. They too claim to represent a legitimate Libyan government. Now they say they'll all recognise the results of December's vote.
The presence of all the main political parties in today's conference is in itself a positive step, where all have announced in different ways their agreement to conduct the parliamentary and presidential elections scheduled on 10th of December.
The vote faces plenty of possible obstacles. In a country at war, it's hard to guarantee the security of voters and international monitors, register people to vote, or prevent corruption. There's also not yet any electoral law that would allow a poll to be held. A constitution written in 2015 was supposed to be approved by referendum, but that vote was never held. French President Emmanuel Macron said the leaders would agree on the ground rules for a vote by mid-September.
So from now until September the 16th, there's a joint commitment to take the necessary measures that will enable the parties to organise an electoral process in a satisfactory manner, either with a new constitution or on the basis of an electoral law which will have been duly voted. And the three presidents and Commander Haftar have committed themselves to that.
If a free and fair election goes ahead, getting this far would be a big diplomatic victory for Macron, but it's still a big if. The ceremony here at the French presidential palace was supposed to end with the signing of the election agreement, but the four main parties say they'll sign it once they're back home in Libya. In a warning, they're still not quite on the same page. Elena Casas, CGTN, Paris.
Well, Libya's neighbours have declared their support for the agreement reached in Paris. Sudan's newly appointed Foreign Minister Al-Dadiri Mohamed Ahmed has made his first official trip to Egypt. He and his Egyptian counterpart, Sameh Shoukry, have praised the outcome of the Paris summit. The two diplomats have stressed the necessity for Libyans to stick to the political roadmap. Egypt and Sudan have also promised to assist the country in the upcoming elections.
Egypt fully supports all efforts to restore stability to Libya. We hope this will unify the Libyan army, preserve the sovereignty of Libya, and end terrorist elements that are fueling unrest in Libya.
What is happening in Libya has negative consequences for all of us. Weapons are being smuggled into our countries. Major trafficking operations have caused renewed fighting in some regions between Sudan and Libya. We are working hard to protect Libya and its neighbors, and an agreement among our Libyan brothers will end all this and bring peace to the region.
Well, for the latest on Libya's landmark agreement, we're joined by Naim Jina, the Executive Director of the Afro-Middle East Centre in Johannesburg. Thank you very much for joining us. How ready is Libya to hold elections in December?
Not really ready. I mean, the clip that you played just now just gave an indication of that. At the moment, they don't have any legal or constitutional way in which they can have an election, and hence the talk about setting up a constitutional basis, which is supposed to be done by mid-September, which is just in 2 or 3 months' time. By then, they must either pass a new law or they must hold a referendum for a new constitution, both of which can be quite daunting tasks in themselves. I mean, a referendum is virtually like an election in itself. Besides that, the fact that the parties that were in Paris didn't agree to sign anything, but said they would do it when they got back home, meant that when they get back home to Libya, they're going to engage in more consultation with other people in their groups, and whether any signatures do get put on paper is another matter. So, of course, this is it's been made to sound like some kind of great breakthrough. The fact is that this is one in a series of meetings, similar meetings that have taken place, and Libya is not ready for an election in 6 or 7 months' time.
What steps do you think should be taken to ensure that the process is credible and legitimate?
Well, the elections in themselves are not the kind of panacea that they're being made out to be, as if Libyans have elections now, everything will be resolved. There are much bigger issues than that, and those issues actually need to be resolved before elections take place. So uniting the country in some kind of way politically, uniting the different institutions, bringing the various militia under some form of control, seizing the flow of weapons from other countries in the region into Libya, which is part of a big part of the problem, the flow of weapons from Egypt, from the UAE, etc. All of these are steps that need to be taken before an election can be held that can elect a single leadership. At the moment, parties are paying lip service to the idea that whoever wins would be accepted, etc. But we're nowhere near, I believe, close to that becoming a reality.
And finally, I just want to ask you, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy, he was blamed for playing a role in the Libyan crisis. Do you think France is capable of redeeming its place as a trusted partner in this new chapter in bilateral relations?
Unfortunately, not the way in which they are acting. So while President Macron calls up this meeting yesterday and gets different sides together, etc., we know that French special forces, for example, have been on the ground in Libya supporting one side, the side of General Khalifa Haftar, training them, providing them other advice, etc. That's not helpful for trying to broker a deal. It seems to many people who are observing what's going on that in fact all France is doing is trying to guarantee its interests, trying to ensure that it has a stake in any future, and is not really interested in peace or stability in Libya. The fact, for example, that Macron insisted that Haftar must be at this meeting, despite the fact that he's not part of any governing structure, and others objected to his being there, is an indication of this. France has taken sides, and they want to push a solution that will ensure that their interests are guaranteed.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. That was Naeem Jina there, the Executive Director of the Afro-Middle East Centre in Johannesburg on that landmark agreement with Libya.